Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I love call and response, as my students know. I'm Dr. Merrill. I'm in the Department of Writing Studies and Rhetoric. And I'm thrilled that we have this very special guest with us today. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you a bit about, and then you will spend the rest of the time listening to the work and the research journey of Dr. Marquese McFerguson. But first, I just want to tell you how I got to meet this wonderful person. And I have been teaching a class, some of whom are here, and some alums are here, in spoken word and slam poetry. Because the idea of how literature alive can change the world, has changed the world, has always been important to me. And when I teach that class, the first 2 times I taught the class, I asked a Hofstra alum and dear friend and former faculty member here, that's Dr. Anne Juliet Woodruff Sims, if she knew someone who was a great slam poet, a spoken word person. And she said, well, I have to introduce you to Marquese McFerguson. And Dr. McFerguson was so generous. He's based in Florida, as you'll hear. He was so generous that he zoomed into that class every time I taught it. And didn't just give a lecture. He interacted with the students, helped them see his own work, and helped be a role model for them and interacted with them about their work. And when I was about to teach the class again this semester, I told the amazing Atheline Collins, who some of you know and who I have to thank so deeply from the Cultural Center and her wonderful staff, that Marquese has generously zoomed into Hofstra many times. And, you know, what can we do for him? And Ms. Collins said, well, we bring him here. And that's what you are about to see. So I want to just start by thanking the Cultural Center, thanking my colleagues in the Department of Writing Studies and Rhetoric, and my newest colleague is here with her class. I'm so glad to see her, and new colleagues as well. It's wonderful to have Cornell Craig, our vice president, who is doing all of the work on campus about inclusion and diversity and helping make this a kind of campus where everybody feels welcome. And of course, I want to thank as well Mr. Roosevelt Smith, who runs the NOAA program, and with whom I have been working both as long as he's been at Hofstra. I've been here even longer, and I get him sometimes to give a talk in my classes. So my brief introduction. Adrienne Rich, the poet, said, poetry should break the silence. We're in a time where so many people are being silenced. And the syllabus for the class that Marquese has spoken to before, I have an epigraph from James Baldwin who said, you write in order to change the world. If you alter it, even by a millimeter, look at reality, and then you change it. And one of the people who has made those changes is Dr. McFerguson. So let me just tell you briefly about him. He is a professor at Florida. I was going to say Florida Atlantic. I knew where he got his doctorate was Florida FSU. This is Florida Atlantic, where he is a professor. His areas of expertise are critical media studies, hip-hop studies. I know we have a hip-hop class here. Gender studies, and I saw my wonderful colleague, Dr. Anastasia, who is the director of the Women's Studies program. That's so completely appropriate to everything you're about to hear today, because Dr. McFerguson also specializes in gender studies, performance and autoethnography, and intercultural communication. So he is in the Department of Intercultural Communication at the School of Communication and Media Studies at Florida Atlantic. And his research and teaching examine how individuals and society communicate and perform identity. That's what my class is doing right now. They're working on across a broad number of cultural intersections. He's widely published about his work, and he has done work about transferring some of the important spoken word material into film. So I can't be more thrilled to have a award-winning slam poet and storyteller and teaching artist with us today. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Marquese McFerguson.
Hey, all right. Take a drink of water. Sorry about that. First, I'd like to thank you all for being here. I know it's a rainy day. Some of you were thinking about standing in the bed, but you made it. So I'm grateful. I would like to thank Dr. Lisa Merrill, Ms. Collins, and also Carol for making sure that I have all the things that I need. As said earlier, I am Dr. Marquese McFerguson. I'm an assistant professor at Florida Atlantic University within the School of Communication and Multimedia Studies. And I think for me, this moment, even when I get a chance to speak and travel, is still humbling, because when I think about my beginnings and where I come from, there's a big gap between the university and where I grew up. Yeah, trying not to cheer up. This is too early to do this. Okay, all right, so let's go into the presentation. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. So, quick disclaimer, I was thinking about college academic lectures when I was in college and what I would remember about those. And so I'm gonna tell you this is not that. All right, just off the top. First of all, when I thought about college lectures, it was a lot of academic language. Professors would come in and do research talks, and I think you're conditioned, and you have to know the language of your field. But I remember being a student that sometimes I would need a thesaurus or a dictionary just to follow along. That will not happen today. I will try to make sure that I speak very plainly, and so that you can digest and be able to understand what I'm saying, right? Also, when it comes to the relatability was important to me. When professors would come and do research talks and they were able to share life lessons, they were able to share examples that I could relate to. That was very valuable as well. And so I would try to share some of those things. And last but not least, useful advice. My mom would always say, talk to people that have been where you want to go. And so I would find myself always trying to get advice from people, whether it be career advice, life advice. And so I would try to share some tidbits of life advice as I do this talk today. And so with that being said, my first piece of life advice, if you don't remember anything else from this talk, remember, do the work that you want to do. This is something my parents will always tell me, and I'll explain a little bit. My parents were both born and raised in the Delta, so this is southern United States. My father was raised in Mississippi. My mother was raised in Arkansas. They were both raised in sharecropping families. So for those who are not familiar with sharecropping, after the institution of slavery was abolished, you had people who became sharecroppers who would still work the land on the plantations. And oftentimes, the plantation owner would charge them money for staying on the land, using the tools, so forth and so on. And after the crop and harvest was over, a lot of times those families who were working the land will only have enough money to have a little bit of food and then start the process all over again each and every year. So both my parents were born into sharecropping families. Unfortunately, they did not have the opportunity to attend middle school or high school because oftentimes, instead of going to school, it was more profitable for the family if the kids in the family would go work the fields. So whatever was in season, that's what they would have to do instead of going to school. Subsequently, when they became grown, as you can imagine, with not having only having a middle school education, there was only a limited amount of jobs they could do. And so both my parents ended up becoming janitors. And I remember them often coming home from work, working 50 and 60-hour work weeks, and they would often tell me, we do the work that we don't want to do so you can do the work that you want to do. And so when I say do the work that you want to do the work that excites you, do the work that brings you joy, do the work that you're passionate about. And as I go through this presentation today, and as I was putting it together, I realized that my academic journey has been just that. Figuring out the things that I'm passionate about, and then how can I do that for a living? I'm thinking about last year when I had a chance to go to Brazil, and I was studying hip hop in Brazil. Next summer, I'll be going to South Africa to do research. I recently had a chance to spend a month in London. I'm pretty sure I'm the first person in my immediate family that has a passport. And to be able to travel to all these places to do and study the things that I love, it really is just a reflection of I found the work that I wanted to do, and I figured out how to make a life out of it. So here we go. The spaces between dreams. And so I call the space between dreams. So I call the presentation the space between dreams because oftentimes we focus on where the person ends up at. We look at the things that they have accomplished, but you don't necessarily know the journey that it took for them to get there. So that's the space between the dreams. And when it comes to the presentation today, I'll talk a little bit about my early passions and how those connect to my academic journey. I will talk about the short film that Dr. Lisa Merrill has showed in her spoken word slam poetry course and the process of writing the short film, getting it published, and also a little bit about the poetry within the short film. Then I will talk about a current project that I'm working on. I'll just enter post-production on the visual album. And then I will do, Dr. Lisa Merrill requested that I do a poetry performance. So I will share a poem, and then we will have audience questions. So let us begin. So, early passions. I think everyone can remember, most people can remember the first time they fell in love. And first time I fell in love was not with a person, it was with a culture. It was hip hop culture. I remember listening to the music, watching the videos, going to get the hip hop magazines. At one point in time, I thought I was gonna be a rapper. Yeah, no, I didn't. I knew I didn't have the skills. I could understand my abilities early on, and that was not one of them. I remember I was infatuated with hip hop. And the only problem with that was my mother was a Southern Baptist woman, and she believed rap music was the devil. And so there would be this battle back and forth. He's shaking his head, yes, you probably, got whoopings too. So I remember there were times where I would sneak and try to listen to music in my room. And then if I heard my mom coming, I would like hide the CDs and put them under the bed. And it's like, act like I'm reading the Bible. Like, yeah, okay. So don't judge me. All right. And so I remember one day, maybe you remember this artist. I know it was before your time, Notorious B.I.G. Notorious B.I.G. had a song called Big Papa. Now, I think most people who like music have whatever song that's an anthem for you, right? It's whatever, when you hear that song, you just lose control. It takes over you. For me, at 13 years old, Big Papa was my song. The irony is that I was like 110 pounds, so I was not a Big Papa at all, but there was this part in the song where he says, throw your hands in the air if you are a true player. See, I can't sing, right? So, but then later on in the verse, there's a particular point where I just lost it. And I was in my room singing this song, and he says, if you have a gun in your waist, this is the chorus now. I'm not threatening anyone. He says, if you have a gun in your waist, please don't shoot up the place. Why? Because I see some ladies tonight that should be having my baby. Okay, all right, anyway, all right. And so I'm in my room, and I'm singing like, I got the gun fingers up in the air. If you got a gun in your waist, I'm singing this song. If you please don't shoot up the place, because I see some ladies tonight that should be having my baby. And unbeknownst to me, my mother walks in. And so she hears this whole verse of me talking about owning guns, and she thinks I'm gonna be a teenage father because I have some woman pregnant. And I remember being grounded for like a month after that. And it still did not stop my love of hip hop. Subsequently, another passion of mine, early on in life was the visual arts. I remember I was the student who always got in trouble for doodling in class. Later on, I learned and understood that a lot of times I could listen to what the professor was saying or the teacher was saying, and I would draw images that were reminding me of what was being talked about. And so it wasn't that I wasn't paying attention. Actually, I was paying attention. I was just drawing images to help me remember the lesson that was being told. Subsequently, I went to college. I majored in visual art. I had an emphasis in oil painting and charcoal, and visual art became my escape. I remember going into the art studio at maybe midnight and staying till like 4 a.m., turning on music and just getting lost. It was also a way for me to deal with trauma. My senior year in college, my mother passed away. And so it was a way for me to just escape and use art as a tool to deal with my emotions and feelings. After I did art or visual art, I also got into spoken word poetry. Initially, I started journaling just to try to think through my thoughts. One day, I went to a poetry open mic. I shared some of my thoughts that were in my journal, and people clapped. And I was like, wait, what? Okay, that wasn't bad. All right, so it inspired me to write more and more and more. And after that, I fell in love with poetry. I started a nonprofit organization called Foreign Tongues, and we were able to do some amazing things. The first poster you'll see is a poster for an event we used to host in Little Rock, Arkansas called Speak Now or Forever Hold Your Peace. The event was held at a Black History Museum in Little Rock, Arkansas. The capacity of the museum was 400 people. Every event that we had 400 people there. And we would bring Tony Award-winning HBO deaf poets to Little Rock through the nonprofit. Some of you may be familiar with the music of Tank and the Bangers. We brought Tank, or Terriana, as I like to call her, to Little Rock, who she's now a Grammy Award-winning poet. And that was amazing to give back to the community. Also, when it comes to slam, here you have a poster in the middle that says Southern Fried Regional Poetry Competition or Poetry Slam. Southern Fried is the second largest poetry competition in the nation. And so Southern Fried, basically you have 32 teams from across the United States, from Hawaii to California to the Carolinas, all across the United States come and compete in this annual competition. At the height of my slam journey, I had a team that competed in Southern Fried, and we finished second. We missed first place by, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, we missed first place by 0.02 points. Okay, I'm still upset about that. But nonetheless, it was a moment that really boosted my confidence and helped me understand that, okay, you are a good writer, because once again, you're competing against HBO deaf poets, Tony Award winners, and people who are making a lot of money traveling across the country and the world doing spoken word poetry. And last but not least, when connected to my poetry journey, I have this poster called the Creativity Without Borders tour, which is the tour that I did right before I entered graduate school, where I got a chance to go perform at different venues across the United States and also in the UK. Got to work with a museum in Northern Ireland, doing a poetry project, exploring history there, and it culminated with a poetry performance at the University of Nottingham. And so I could say poetry has really, really been good to me. Now, thinking about all my passions collectively, whether it be hip hop or poetry, I had to think about, I reached a point in my life where I was thinking, okay, what do I do next? How do I take these things that I love and I'm really, really passionate about, and how do I turn those into a career? And I've always been a nerd. I always loved learning. And so as I thought about it, I was like, hey, I could be a professor, because a professor means that you study an area, you become a scholar in the area, you become really knowledgeable in the area. And I began to look at research programs from across the nation. I selected 4, and I will pause right here before I well, of course, you know I selected by the slide, the University of South Florida. This is another piece of life advice I would tell you. When you have a dream, please do not let fear stop you. Do not let fear stop you from trying whatever it is that you want to attempt. I selected 4 PhD programs that I wanted to apply to, and it took me a year to build up enough courage to actually apply. I don't know if it was imposter syndrome because I was a first-generation college student, and I felt like me being the first person in my family to graduate from high school was a big accomplishment. Me getting a bachelor's and a master's degree was an accomplishment, but there was something about getting a doctorate that I could not get over that mental hurdle. And the irony of that situation is when I finally built up enough courage to apply and take the graduate exam that I needed to take, I got into all 4 of the universities that I applied to, and I also got full-paid scholarships from the universities that I applied to. And I sat with that, and I just really thought like I wasted a year of my life being afraid, and I was more than capable of whatever that I wanted to do. And so if I can tell you anything, try. Just try. If you have a goal, you have a dream, just try it. Do not let fear stop you. You do not want. I would much rather try and fail than to think what would have happened if I would have tried, and I never did. So I applied to the 4 PhD programs. I got into the University of South Florida. I chose the University of South Florida, and when it comes to my early passions, one of the main reasons why I chose the University of South Florida is because, one, they had a concentration in media studies. So media studies is exploring things like television, movies, music, and popular culture, which helped me also explore and research hip hop. So I was like, okay, media studies, I didn't know what media studies was at first, but when I found out what it was, like, okay, cool, I can do hip hop. Also, too, at the University of South Florida, they had performance studies, which also meant that I could do stage performances, which also meant that I could still do spoken word poetry, but I can begin to think about how do I take my spoken word poetry from just being something I do at open mics and slams to actually developing full stage performances. And so once again, my early passions connected to my academic journey. Since then, from graduating from the University of South Florida with my PhD and going on to be a professor at Florida Atlantic University, I have done a few different types of research. So when it comes to media and gender studies, I have particularly wrote essays and also have a book we're negotiating a contract with the University Press of Mississippi right now. I have a picture of Nipsey Hussle because one of my most recent articles, I explored the life and legacy of Nipsey Hussle, and in particular how within hip hop culture, you have this image of the gangster. The gangster was like thugged out, violent, tears down his community. And so I argue that Nipsey Hussle kind of pushes back on this notion of what the gangster is in hip hop, because when you look at his life, from him building businesses in this community to him actually developing a campaign to push back on the gentrification that was taking place in South Central Los Angeles, to him developing a STEM school in South Central Los Angeles. Instead of tearing down his community, he was actually one of those people who was building it up, right? And so I, in the paper, talk about this ideas of the way that hip hop artists, in particular black men, are stereotyped and how he kind of defies some of those stereotypes. Also, the book I'm negotiating a contract with the University Press in Mississippi right now. It's called More Than Music, Exploring Hip Hop, Home, and Black Masculinity. And it looks at how basically hip hop has changed American popular culture, but also it kind of has a mirror effect. And I talk about how it also changed me. Because something I didn't mention earlier was at 13, when I fell in love with hip hop, I believe it also was because at 13, I also lost my father. And so my mother would have to work even more hours, and I became like a latchkey kid. And so I would just be in my room listening to this music, but also, I think subconsciously, seeing these black men gave me different models to possibly model myself after, because I was searching for that father figure, male role model, because my father had passed away from colon cancer. And so those are how I use media and gender studies with the essays and books. Also, I've had the opportunity to do original performances in the last 3 years at the University of North Texas. I was very, very honored to be given the opportunity to be the inaugural artist in residence for the communication department at the University of North Texas, which when the residency, I got a chance to spend a week there teaching undergraduate and graduate classes, doing writing workshops, and then doing a performance at the end of my time at the residency. I also had a chance to perform at the University of Cincinnati with your alum, Dr. Andrew Woodruff. And I've had the chance to perform at the University of Tampa, and in February with Dr. Andrew Woodruff, we'll be going to Southern Illinois University to also do a performance. And so this is just kind of a glimpse into how I have taken my passions and connected them to academic research, and all of the performances that I've done at these different institutions, every one of them has spoken word poetry linked in them. And then, last but not least, transitioning to unveiling Our Scars, which is a short film that I did. It's a poetry-based short film, and it is written, directed, and narrated by me. And also, when it comes to the filming and the cinematography, why was that hard? Yeah, I worked with a professor by the name of Ryan Watson at the University of South Florida, and he did an amazing job capturing this film. I learned so much from him through this process, and I will share a little bit more of that later. And I think the cool thing about this project was oftentimes when you do arts, and especially in academia, sometimes people have a tendency to be like, oh man, like that's cool, but it's not really research. And I think the coolest thing about this project was I got a chance to publish this short film in an academic journal, and actually a very, very good academic journal. And it was, I guess, for me, has been one of the highlights of my academic career thus far. When it comes to unveiling Our Scars, the topic explores men and emotional vulnerability in romantic relationships, and kind of looks at the internal/interpersonal impact of embodying negative stereotypes about masculinity. And so looking at how not only it affects them on a personal level, but also when it comes to being in relationships with other people. And then last but not least, the film kind of explores the various reasons why men might withhold emotions in relationships, whether it be they were taught by pop culture to do so, the community that they grew up in, or they were trying to protect someone else's emotions, or they were in a toxic relationship. The interesting thing about this project was the amount of people and men I had come up to me and talk about moments when they were in relationships where they began to share their emotions, and the person they were in a relationship with basically told them to man up. Like, you need to, hey, get it together. I remember I had a situation like that happen when my mother passed away, and I was in a relationship with a person, and it was maybe 6 months after my mom passed away, and I was still grieving. And the person just pretty much told me, hey, get it together, man up. And I was like, you're a horrible person. And I also realized I didn't need to be with that person anymore. But I think sometimes when we think about negative stereotypes about men and the ways in which they are learned and perpetuated, we often think that like it's only, we rarely think about how other people contribute to the behaviors that they have as well. And so the poetry writing process and unveiling our scars. In my poetry writing class, I often tell my students, do not serve me bland poetry. Do not, I don't like bland food, I don't like bland poetry. And so I like to cook. And I show them the side of the different seasonings, right? And I say that basically each seasoning is like a poetic device. So similes, metaphors, alliteration, personification. In my class, you decide what ingredients that you like to cook with most. I would not tell you or try to control what you cook with, but you have to add some seasoning. Don't serve me anything bland, right? Also, too, just as I don't want any bland poetry, if you add too much seasoning to any dish, it also can ruin the dish as well. And so through this process, I began to help them figure out, okay, are you a person that likes alliteration? Are you a person that likes metaphors, similes, and figure out what works for you? For me personally, I have been a lover of extended metaphors. That is oh my God. Like, that's how I know I'm a nerd. Like when you say, oh, I love extended metaphors and make noises, and people are like, okay, what? Like, yes, I do. And so in this poetry-based short film, I use extended metaphors. And so I'm gonna share a couple of examples with you. Here we go. So the first extended metaphor example I will share is exploring how the power of following in love. Like when you think about following in love, it is amazing. You could be having a great day, and then the person you're in love with, you have an argument with that person and it shifts your whole mood. Like, Or you could be having a horrible day and have a great interaction with the person that you're in love with, and it can shift your whole mood the other way. And I just think that's a lot of power. And so I kind of want to capture that in the film, and so I wrote these lines. The people that we fall in love with have the ability to lift our happiness into the heavens. Also, I love alliteration. Their caresses turn our faces into crescents. So this ideal of a crescent moon really is a smile. We enjoy orbiting in their presence, but when you feel the gravity of someone putting space between you and them, we become eclipsed with sadness. So heavens, crescents, orbiting, gravity, space, eclipse. Notice how I strung the metaphor together there. For me, that is something I really enjoy doing. Often, I also tell my students too, if you're going to use metaphors, try to find metaphors that other people don't use. So when thinking about love, when's the last time you thought about love connected to the heavens and the stars and the galaxies and crescents and stuff like that? Another example of extended metaphor that I used in this poem is exploring the impact of a broken heart. And I have Jasmine Sullivan. She had this song that was profound. I bust the windows out your car. And I would argue that Miss Sullivan, when she entered that relationship, that was not her intention. However, when you've been hurt, you have a tendency to do things that you thought you would never do. If it was her intention to bust the windows out the person's car when she entered the relationship, that's a different conversation. But in the poem, I wanted to explore the impact of a broken heart and how broken hearts can really put you in situations, or I want to say put you in situations that can make you behave in certain ways that you didn't know you were capable of. And so to do that, I kind of use this natural disaster metaphor. When your heart's been broken and your feelings are numb, we all have the potential to become people and things we said we would never become. See, we all have the potential to be natural disasters, an earthquake of emotions, a tsunami of selfishness. We all have the potential to drive people away, break people's hearts, destroy and demolish. I guess we're all a little bit more like hurricanes than we would like to acknowledge. And I think if I'm honest with myself, and if we're honest with ourselves, we probably have hurt people and done things that if we could take them back, we would. And so I just kind of want to capture that through this natural disaster metaphor. And so that's a little bit about the poetry writing process. And before I show you the short film, I would just talk about a little bit about the filmmaking process. When I went to the filmmaker, Professor Ryan Watson, and I said, I want to do a short film, he was like, great. I was like, okay, cool, you're on board. Yes. He was like, where's the storyboard? I was like, what is that? I had no idea what a storyboard was. And so he began to walk me through the process of developing a storyboard, which a storyboard is basically an illustration of sequencing the scenes that you want to shoot in a short film. And so you kind of sketch those scenes out. It's a natural progression of the short film. Then he was like, okay, we have to do a casting call. I was like, okay. All right, so the people are just not gonna show up out of thin air. Okay, got you. All right, so from the casting call, we did the actor interviews, we did the choreographer interviews. I had to also tell the actors, because, I mean, what clothes are you, what do you want me to wear? What are the scenes we're gonna be exploring? Location scouting. We scouted locations for 2 weeks. This short film I'm about to show you is 5 minutes long. It took us months to put all these things together. It definitely made me have a healthy and a newfound appreciation for the time it takes to create things, especially in mediums that I was not familiar with. We also went through hiring lighting technicians, hiring sound engineers, because after the poem was done, I recorded the poem, we had all the scenes. He was like, okay, now we have to get the short film scored. Anyway, so nonetheless, it was beautiful, and I will share it with you now. If you have not seen it, if you have, hopefully you enjoy it for a second time. All right, so this is the short film.
Than this. Keep it together. Do not. Why do I feel this way? You're stronger than this. Keep it together. Do not let them see you hurt. They will think you're soft. How do I deal with these emotions? Why am I so upset? They already think you're violent. Keep your composure. Why can't I get past this? Keep telling yourself you're okay. I don't want to feel like this. Ignore the pain. These feelings will fade. Keep it together. Do not be weak. I am not okay. Who can I talk to? What will they think? They will look at you different. Do not let them see you cry. I should be over this by now. You are stronger than this. Man, why can't I move forward? I can't let anybody get close to me again. What is wrong with me? Keep it together. I can't get hurt again. Why am I emotionally numb? Just act like you're okay. I want to tell you I love you. But I've been hurt so much in the past that the words I love you have slowly begun to feel sandpaper soft on my lips. When I begin to bleed memories of my exes, opening up my heart to someone new isn't an appealing first aid kit. The people that we fall in love with have the ability to lift our happiness into the heavens. Their caresses turn our smiles into crescents. We enjoy orbiting in their presence, but when you feel the gravity of someone putting space between you and them, we become eclipsed with sadness. When you've been hurt by someone you love, you begin to treat your heart like a cake. Because relationships are about how much of yourself you're willing to share. And honestly, there's a difference between giving someone a piece of yourself and giving him a layer. Will our hearts ever rest? We must be patient to be sure, but instead we rush more. Wait, giving him a layer. Will our hearts ever rest? Instead we rush more. And just like that, without even knowing it, somehow we allow our past relationships to turn us into mountains of emotions. We stand on cliffs of confusion. You don't know how much you are afraid of heights until you're about to jump into a new relationship. Maybe this time it'll work out. That's what we're hoping. But you can't fall in love if the parachute of your heart isn't open. And when your heart's been broken and your feelings are numb. We all have the potential to become people and things we said we would never become. See, we all have the potential to become natural disasters. An earthquake of emotions, a tsunami of selfishness. We all have the potential to drive people away, break people's hearts, destroy and demolish. I guess we're all a little bit more like hurricanes than we would like to acknowledge. When you've been hurt by someone you love, you will try to explain how you feel. But sometimes you won't be able to find the right words to say it. I mean, how do I explain that my heart's been broken and put back together so many times it's beginning to resemble a mosaic? But there is nothing beautiful about being hurt by someone. Nothing pretty about being Picasso'd in pain. You say that we can paint a masterpiece together. You say that we can create it, we can have it, but you keep telling me we can't paint a new masterpiece if I keep using my old relationships as a palette. You keep saying we can't see eye to eye because I'm standing on top of my insecurities. I try to do things to push you away, but you refuse to retreat. I keep telling you I'm a monster, but you keep telling me you can see beauty in the beast. Say that you understand, Understand that I built a fortress around my heart so that I would never get hurt again. But you keep telling me those same walls you built to protect yourself are the same walls that aren't allowing me to get in.
Thank you. And like I said, I think for me, one of the things I'm most proud about that project, because I was able to get it published, right? And it wasn't just like, oh, this kind of cool project you're doing on the side. Like, no, this is a part of my research. And so the last part of my research I will talk about today is this very ambitious project that I have. So it is a visual album called There's No Place Like Home. And it's a series of short films exploring the first-gen grad school experience. I say this project is ambitious because my goal is to have it published with a university press. So a university press is basically where you go to publish books. And so because the project is 12 short films connected, I believe it's much more, more expansive than one single short film. And so my goal is to possibly get it viewed and seen as on the level of a book. And so I'll talk a little bit more about the visual album, and then I'll end with the poetry performance. So with the visual album, one of the things that I've always been interested in is this idea of how people can be in the same place but have different experiences. Like we literally can be sitting side by side and we will have experienced a space differently. One of the moments where I remember this was in graduate school when I was getting my PhD, and I had a colleague who was a woman, and she was around like 5'3", and we had a student. We had the same student in two different classes, and the interaction she had with the student was totally different from the interaction I would have with the student. She would tell me about how the student would challenge her, push back on everything she said, try to intimidate her in class. And I was thinking, like, I never had that experience. This is interesting. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm 6'3". I'm like, I guess. He was like, you're not going to try that with me. Like, yeah. I'm like, I'll just fail you. I'm sorry. No, I wouldn't. And so, but in reverse, I remember telling her, one night about an experience, which I recently wrote about this in an article, about me going to the school. So I'm a night owl. I understand myself. I write better when the world is silent and things aren't moving. And so I would go up to the university around 11 o'clock or midnight, and I would write on my dissertation. I had an office at the university. And I remember one night getting stopped by the campus police. And as I'm going into the building, and they were like, okay, so what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to my office. And they were like, no, you're a student here? And they would not believe I was a student. They thought like my ID was fake. And so they accused me of breaking into the building. And I remember when I told my colleague, and she was like, I cannot believe that. And I was like, I can, right? So like this, but it was once again those perspectives, how we're in the same exact place, but we experience it in totally different ways. And so in this project, I wanted to also talk about the impact of visible versus invisible identity markers in academic spaces. And basically, when I say that, I'm basically talking about how when it comes to the essays and the literature about the ways in which academics navigate academia, there has been a lot of literature connected to race and gender, how these things intersect and impact how people experience the space. However, those things are visible. In this project, I'm interested in how the visible and the invisible things intersect. So how does me being from a working class family, which is also just new to me, I was like, I don't know if there's something under working class, like, because we were just poor. And so, but how does that impact me? But also my educational background, me being a first generation college student, how does that impact me? Because I would argue that there are a lot of middle class sensibilities when it comes to navigating academia. And if you are not from that class, this can be an interesting space to navigate. In this project, I used the conceptual framework concept formed by Bell Hooks of home place. So in her book Yearning, Bell Hooks talks about growing up in rural Kentucky and during the Jim Crow era, and she talks about the ways in which Black people were oppressed. She talks about segregation. She talks about the racism that her family experienced. And then she talks about how her foremothers, her grandmother and her mother, made conscious decisions to create within the four walls of their home a space where if you can be safe anywhere else, you could be safe here. And so she talks about how this ideal of homemaking and home place is not a passive act, but it's something actual that we can do on purpose. And in particular, she talks about how her grandmother and her mother's homes were these home places where there were sites of resistance, places of refuge, and also spaces to develop critical consciousness. This ideal of when the world has told you you are less than and you're not meaningful, within this space, we can push back on those ideas and we can speak life into you. And so Bell Hooks makes the argument that homemaking is a radical and political act. And so in my film, I kind of take up what Bell Hooks says when she says home places are cultural spaces that have a dramatic impact on our identity development. And so I argue that when you look at the years it takes to get a PhD and get a master's degree, and how much time we spend in these institutions of higher education and how they shape the way we think, academia, for better or for worse, is a home place for scholars as well. When it comes to this project, I am interested in two questions. In what distinct ways do Black first-generation graduate students from working-class backgrounds experience higher education institutions? And then what are the particular strategies and practices through which these graduate students create a sense of home or belonging in academic spaces? In particular, how do these students move past simply surviving this place but move towards thriving in this place? When it comes to the project structure, so as I stated earlier, there's no place like home. It's 12 short films. 6 short films are formatted as interviews that explore my lived experience of being a first-generation Black graduate student from a working class background. And then there are 6 short films that use actors, choreographers, voice performers, to illustrate and connect the personal stories that I share in the interviews with concepts and theories in academic literature. Actually, in these short films, because I was doing so much work and trying to direct, I actually hired a voice performer to actually narrate the poetry. Even though I wrote all the poetry, I hired a voice performer to do that. And so I will share a short film from the project, but before I do that, I will tell you about the interview that leads into the short film. And so the interview is called, that leads into this short film is called My First Day of College. And so I attended a small private school in Arkansas called Ouachita Baptist University. And I remember one of the first things I can remember when I walked on the campus this campus was nice. I'm talking about manicured lawns. I mean, you to the people in the work in the gardens, the flowers are blooming, the dorm is immaculate. I'm like, this is nice. Like, and I don't know if you've ever had one of those experiences where you feel like, okay, one of these things does not belong. Right? And so along with it being really nice, Ouachita was like maybe 98% white. And so I remember going onto campus and trying to you're taking in everything. You're one of the few students that look like you. And this community looks totally different from the community that you came from. I want to be very clear. I'm not ashamed of the community that I came from. This just looks different. And I remember walking onto campus with, I couldn't afford luggage. That's how, we just didn't have that money. And so I packed all my clothes in grocery bags. Like that was my luggage. And so I'm walking into the dorm with my clothes and my grocery sacks. And I remember people having like monograms on their luggage and designer luggage. And I'm just like, wow. And it was one of those moments like I felt like I do not belong here. And I remember I cried that first night. And then I realized that one thing that my parents always told me, and I used it to my advantage, and they always told me when you're in spaces where you're one of the few people that look like you just have to work twice as hard so that your excellence is undeniable. And I remember going into those classrooms. Oftentimes, I was the only person that looked like me in those classrooms. And I remember after that first semester, like I worked. I'm talking about like I probably didn't sleep well. I'm just working. And I remember when we got our grades back that first semester, I made a 3.8. And I was mad because I felt like I deserved a 4.0. But after I got over the fact that I made the 3.8, I was happy because I realized, regardless of the background that I came from, I could make it at any institution when it came down to this. I may not have the same financial backing or resources that some people came from, but when it came to just intellect and intelligence and hard work, I could make it. And in this short film, I talk about how that concept of pushing yourself, especially when you're coming from working class backgrounds, is connected to this concept of John Henryism, which it's this ideal that, in a nutshell, my hard work can make up for my shortcomings, but how sometimes your hard work, you push yourself to the point where it can have negative impacts. And I realized that my pushing myself allowed me to achieve a lot, but it also has some negative impacts in my life as well. And so this is the short film from the project called The Marathon. So the short film is called The Marathon.
Before I left for college, my mother sat me down and had a conversation. She said, throughout my life, I've worked overtime hours and sacrificed so that you could have this opportunity. Words can't express how proud I am. But there are some things I need you to understand. College will not be a sprint. It will be a marathon. And when you step on campus, everyone will have the same race to run. But not everyone will have the same hurdles to overcome. She said, I've never been to college. But one thing is for certain. I know how it feels to navigate a space where you are the only Black person. And I wish I could tell you it's easy, but honestly, there will be moments where you question yourself, moments where you feel like a fraud, and honestly, there will be moments where you have to work twice as hard, work twice as long, be twice as good, be twice as strong. But remember, everyone has the same race to run, but not everyone has the same hurdles to overcome. My mother's words became my motivation, and I decided I wouldn't let anything get between me and seeing my family's faces on the day of my graduation. So I pushed myself. When I began to feel the weight of being the first one in my family to graduate, I pushed. On the days I didn't feel like going to class, but remembered the sacrifices that were made so I could have this chance, I pushed. When the strain of classes stretched my mind in different directions and imposter syndrome put cramps in my confidence and had me second guessing, I pushed. Struggling to stay awake in class because I wasn't getting enough sleep, I pushed. When it was dinner time and I couldn't remember if I ate breakfast or lunch and my body let me know that I was doing too much, I pushed. Surrounded by a sea of assignments, feeling myself slowly drown, and the only thing keeping me afloat is the fear of letting my family down. I pushed. I pushed. I pushed. And in the process of me pushing myself to be my very best, I realized I do not know how to effectively deal with stress. I realized I had determination but lacked coping skills and tactics and self-care. It's something I understood in theory but struggled to practice. I realized my challenge. My challenge was finding balance. I realized for me to be mentally healthy and physically healthy and achieve my academic dreams, I could no longer treat my body like a machine.
All right. Indeed. All right. So that is the end of the formal presentation. Now I will do a spoken word piece, and then following that, we will have questions from the audience about anything that I've explored. So yes, in trying to select a piece that that I will feel comfortable performing, because I have been in like director mode for so long, I've decided to share the piece. My last time I slammed at Southern Fried when we finished second, we performed the piece. And we ended up, even though we got second, that bothers me. Even though we got second, we got a standing ovation on this piece. And I wrote the piece, but it was performed with another person. And I think it's fitting to do this piece because the piece changed the nation. I mean, the event that I wrote about changed the nation. I would argue it changed the world. And it is connected to New York. So I will do this piece, and then we will open it up for questions. All right, so take a sip of water. All right. Last time I did this piece, I got emotional, so hopefully the tears don't come. All right. You thought I was going to start, but I was. Now I'm like, okay, I'm about to start now. Okay, all right. Poets are weird. Like you have your little things you do before you perform. So here we go. And this is actually a serious piece, so I will go. Over 90,000 sets of twins are born in America each year, but none were as beautiful as us. Torsos stretching so high into the heavens, the angels looked up to us. Meticulously and masterfully made, metal masterpieces, mirror images of magnificence, born with steel spines, fiberglass faces, concrete chests, big apples for hearts in the Manhattan state of mind. We were beautiful. Twins that towered above what some will call a concrete jungle, subway lines traced across the city landscape like vines, trains bustled to boroughs. What up, Bronx? What up, Brooklyn? Yo, Staten Island, what up, B? Queens, I see you, son. Rose the same way it always does. We watched this guy, Picasso, at the morning sky with the rainbow sherbet-coated paintbrushes, but at 8:46 and 9:03, the sky began to rain 757s. We should have known we were susceptible to fall because it was the beginning of September. We thought we were able to do everything except timber. Eyes squinted, can't quite make out what's coming in the distance. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No. It's the Grim Reaper blowing us kamikaze kisses. Cockpit and concrete are introduced to head-on collisions. As we begin to hemorrhage, the Statue of Liberty turned her head and refused to look. I heard her whisper, "Who knew you can turn 199 stories into one book?" Every story ripped away from our frame brought thousands of people pain, and just when we thought it couldn't get any worse, we noticed it began to rain. People. We watched as individuals jumped from our exit wounds equipped with parachutes of desperation. A week earlier, they would have been considered suicide jumpers, but today, they're angels descending from the heavens, praying that God somehow grants them their wings before they reach earth. So much smoke filled the air, it looked like God was smoking a pack of Newports. There is no metaphor that can truly explain what this experience felt like as we watched the fire burn our head, torso, and hands. All we could think was, man, I guess this is how those 4 little girls felt in Birmingham. Let us be reminders that sometimes bad things happen to good people. Let us be reminders that sometimes bad people do bad things. Let us be reminders that sometimes bad things are done in the name of God, Jah, Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah, Amen, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. Some people do the work of Satan, but claim to be employed by God. It doesn't make sense. It's like asking a circle, whose side are you on? God, where are you? God, we need you. But the view from this aircraft crucifix makes it hard for us to see you and to think. We always thought we would actually enjoy the day we got our wings. Thank you. Indeed. So now we can open up the audience floor to questions. I think we have like maybe 15 minutes or so. So if anyone has questions, comments, I am available. All right, thank you. Time for now, man.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Chastity Harden. I am a sophomore here at Hofstra.
Okay.
My major is marketing.
Okay.
And I am in professor's class, slam poetry class.
Okay.
So I did get the opportunity to read your article as well as watch your video. So some questions that I had, but one that really, after watching your presentation, sparked my interest way more, is your poem calls out stereotypes and asks men not to submit to them. What does healing look like beyond that? How can Black men move from numbness into emotional clarity and healthier relationships in your experience as well?
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the biggest things that helped me was therapy. Like, I think in some communities, therapy is not something that we widely talk about or is accepted. You know, I think if my parents were living, they'd be like, you telling them people your business? Like, like we have doctors for everything else. Like, you need doctors for your mental health as well. And so I think one of the things I would say is therapy. And then I would also say creating, selecting friend groups and creating community that allows you to be emotionally vulnerable, like I said, because sometimes you could actually be in a relationship with the person and they will not make space for you to do that. And so I think creating supportive communities and then also I would say therapy. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hey. I really loved your film, Unveiling Our Scars. I think it was beautiful. And
Thank you.
I really love the creative choice that you had to do it all in black and white. And I was wondering what the inspiration behind that choice was, and do you think that the meaning or the impact of the film would have been changed or different if it were done in color?
Yes. So no, thank you for pointing that out. I do think it would have been different if I did it in color, and I'm going to be really, really honest. I was 50-50 about doing it black and white or in color until we did the shots with the choreographers in the actual dance studio, and the sun was coming in through the window, and I was like, oh no! Like the contrast of black and white, it was just beautiful. And so when we shot those scenes, that's when I made the choice, and I just think it just provided A contrast, also metaphorically, you could talk about this ideal of ways in which men perform identity. It's black and white, but it's really, really not, right? And so it can go a lot of different ways, but the choice was definitely intentional. And I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it. So yeah, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Indeed. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello.
Hey.
My name's Ariana McLean. I'm an adjunct at the writing department.
Okay.
So I was wondering if you could speak to how you navigate writing all these different genres, academic writing, essay writing, spoken word poetry, written poetry, and now scripting. Maybe you can speak to your creative process or just like how you navigate switching, because it's almost different brains, but maybe it's the same for you.
No, it's not. It is not. I think for me, a lot of people are familiar with this ideal of code switching, right? How you switch to be one person in one different space. So there's a scholar by the name of Dr. Vershawn Young, who's a communication scholar, and he advocates for this ideal of code meshing. And so instead of trying to switch who I am in all these different spaces, I really believe I'm actively trying to bring them all together. So even in the essay that I'm writing now, there are prose and there are poetry in this essay. And I think that was difficult for me to embrace at first because I had professors actively tell me, this is not academic writing. And I think going back to this ideal of what we were talking about, Black masculinity, and finding a supportive community for you can be emotionally vulnerable, I think you also have to find a supportive community in academia. They're doing the work that you want to do and they support the work that you want to do, because I really try to strive to write essays that I want to read. If I don't want to read this, I don't want to write it. And that's going to include poetics. That's going to include metaphors. And so for me, it's really trying to figure out, one, finding the scholars who do this and figuring out how they do it. I really love studying other writers and then figuring out how to use a hip hop term, how I can sample parts of their writing styles into my writing. Also, too, finding the journals that they're publishing in, because those journals are accepting of that kind of writing. And so, this provides me an outlet to also publish my work as well. And so that's kind of how I've gone through it. Initially I felt like there was two parts of me, and it's that's a lot to juggle. And I often felt like when I was trying to do the traditional writing, it was just bad. It was bad. It wasn't me, I'll say that. I didn't enjoy writing it, and I think we only have a short amount of time on this earth, and so I want to spend as much time as possible doing the stuff that I enjoy. So yeah, thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Janae. I'm a psychology major and a business design minor.
Okay.
My question is, throughout a lot of your pieces, you have to be very vulnerable and true to yourself. And even if it's not about your personal, you still have to show your emotions publicly. Yeah. Was that vulnerability on stage and while performing something that came to you kind of naturally? Did you have to train and kind of develop it over a period of time too?
So I think, yes, it was something I had to develop. If you look at my first poem I did at an open mic, it was about me. Then when I actually began to perform at open mics and slam, I went a year. I take that back. I went 2 or 3 years. So I didn't write a poem about myself, because you realize I don't know these people. I'm sharing all these intimate details. I don't know you. And also, too, I'm a person where I don't know what it is about me. There's certain pieces, I'll cry. I will cry. And when and so trying to navigate your emotions on stage, also, too, being very honest with slam poetry. Slam poetry is a competition. You have 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Yeah, you can cry on stage. Now, 5 minutes later, you've lost, right? So this idea of I've had to be able to, how do I hone these emotions and be able to still navigate that? So it took time to be willing to open up and share parts of my stuff with people that I didn't know. And there's still poems that I write that will only be for me. But then also to developing and rehearsing poems enough where when the emotions come, I don't become overtaken by the emotions, but I can kind of use and channel those emotions into the performance. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. Thank you. Anyone else?
All right, so my question was, I'm Sebastian Florimon. I'm a music business major, and I'm in Professor Merrill's class.
Okay.
So yeah, I just watched your Unveiling Our Scars yesterday, and I was going off on it.
Gotcha.
So I was saying, what I wrote down was people would place a lot of high standards and expectations onto themselves, unfortunately placing that machine mindset on themselves. What would you think is the best option for them to free themselves from that figurative jail?
Now, when you say people will place a lot of expectations on themselves, what context are you talking about?
As like they'll place a lot of stress either due to their own like identity or their own circumstances. Maybe it could be poverty. Maybe it could be their own miscommunication within themselves.
Gotcha.
Like it could be like gender dysphoria, different things like that.
Yeah.
And then they'll place a high expectation on themselves. What would you think is the best option to free themselves?
I think that's a good question. I think in life, one thing that I have attempted to do is figure out what's important to me outside of what society's expectations are. And I think once you begin to become more in tune with yourself and use it as a compass, I think life becomes a lot easier because the expectations are set by you versus someone else. I think also too, I'm coming back to this idea of a supportive community, right? Mm-hmm. So having a supportive community that kind of allows you to share thoughts, but also will kind of push back on like, okay, bro, you're doing too much. All right, that's too much. Hey, that's not even reasonable. I know when I had the 3.8, I had to have people talk me down. It's like, you made a 3.8. What are you tripping? Like, you're right, right? But this ideal of I could have. Making the dean's list could have been ruined because, like you're talking about, this expectation I have for myself. And so being able to find balance, but then also support a community as well. And then just look internal. I think social media and the media in general are, when it comes to technological advancements, they are amazing. But I do believe that we're like, you're comparing yourself all the time. And like, realistically, you are one of one. Like, no, in the history of human beings walking this planet, there has never been another you. Be you. I go by a quote by Dr. Seuss that says, those that matter don't mind and those that mind don't matter. So yeah, just be you. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks again. We're so happy to have you here. I'm Dr. Cornell Craig, Vice President for Equity and Inclusion. But I also write and I also do spoken word.
Oh, awesome.
Something you brought up leads to this question. Mm-hmm. Creating art and then competing in art. Can you talk a little bit about that? And even for potential writers or current writers or other types of artists that may be hesitant to even do the art because they're comparing their art with someone else.
Yes. So I think when it comes to art, I think art should inspire. It should not be used as a tool to compare. Because what you could run the risk of is you're continually comparing yourself. You can just become a copy and paste of another artist. There's a poet that I love his work. If you've never heard the work of Rudy Francisco, you should check him out. He's a good page poet, but also a good spoken word poet. And when Rudy like kind of blew up, you began to see like miniature Rudys. Like really, that's a cool metaphor, but like you don't even sound like yourself, right? And so I would say, one, use art as inspiration. Use it to inspire you. Figure out how you can sample something and make it your own instead of copying someone else. And then when it comes to competition, I would argue slam, because slam poetry is a competition. I've had a chance to travel with slam. I won a lot of money with slam. Slam is not for everyone. And when you do slam poetry, you run the risk of, if the poem doesn't score the points that you want to score, you begin to think it's a bad poem. No, and so you have to, I think if you're going to compete, you have to have a healthy relationship with competition. I've seen people bring out the worst in them. I know I've been in slams where my team has won. People were upset with the scores. They're yelling, and this is messed up. I'm like, man, this is poetry. Like, I remember one of my friends, I was telling him about this, like, man, y'all beefing over poetry? Like, it's just, but that's the competition aspect of it. And I think you have to have a healthy respect for competition, but also realize that oftentimes you cannot allow other people to place value on what you do. If I wrote a poem and I believe it's a really, really good poem, and I know I put the time, effort, and energy into it, and the judges don't think so, that's okay. It still doesn't take away from the fact that I think this art is dope. And so, yeah, I would say for slam poetry, you have to have a healthy relationship with it, but also to just art in general, use it for inspiration. Don't try to copy someone else. Yeah, indeed. Anyone else? All right.
I think my students were all preparing things to ask, so guys, here's your opportunity. So please take advantage of this opportunity. You can, if you have a question, you might want to respond to something that you heard today or that you read in Dr. McFerguson's article or that you saw in the video that we all just saw. So I think somebody's being drafted.
Oh, man. Not voluntold.
I'll give you guys a little breather. Hi, my name is Rajdeep Paulus. I'm a YA author and also an adjunct here in the writing department. This was phenomenal. I'm
Thank you.
so glad I came. I'm glad my students got to experience this. I had the privilege of hearing Amanda Gorman not that long ago. She's
amazing.
Beyond talented. She's so excited.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, have you had a chance to ever work with her? Would you ever want to collaborate with her? My question was also partly do poets ever collaborate and kind of like songwriting?
Yeah. So I haven't had a chance to work with Amanda. I would love to. She's amazing. Like she is. Yeah, she's dope. I think poets do collaborate. I think it depends on like what what journey you're on at that moment. I know for me, a lot of my stuff is connected to like doing short films and stuff like that now. So I don't necessarily know if the creative paths would align, but I would make it align if she called like, hey, yeah, I can be there. I can be there. And so, yeah, but poets do collaborate and they do it often. And I think like that's the next step with spoken word poetry. I often think about where's it going next. And for me, I think it's more theater-based things that use, like a lot of poets are doing poetry backed by the orchestra now and things of that nature. And a lot of that stuff is in collaboration with other poets. And so yeah. Thank you. Who you on?
When you was your first.
I'll go.
Okay. All right.
Not this tall. Hi, my name is Caitlin. I want to say, for starters, your poems and everything were really beautiful.
Thank you.
When I was just like blown away. So I want to start with that.
I appreciate that.
I have two questions if there's enough time for that.
Okay.
For starters, if someone was interested into getting into doing slam poetry, how would they do that? How would they find these kinds of places? Because it seems really cool, but you only really hear about it after the fact.
Yes. I would say now, social media. Like that just like search slams in certain cities. I know like New York has, and I know this some distance from here, but like New York has one of the most legendary spoken word venues in the country with the New Eurekan. But I would say just search and hit somebody in the DM, email. And I think like that, it's almost like a breadcrumb. I think the breadcrumb will lead you to that. But social media would be the biggest thing.
Thank you very much. And the other quick question I had was, I do a lot of theater. Okay. And when I'm performing poems, I find myself acting like I'm in theater. And I'm not sure if anyone else has ever had that issue of I want to be vulnerable, but then I'm finding I'm being vulnerable in a theatrical way without even thinking. Do you have any problems having that happen or any ways to get into actual vulnerability and not performing?
I would think the more you begin to write pieces that are personal to you, I think it becomes more natural because it is your lines that you're expressing versus script that you're following. But I also would say most of the poets that I know who have theater backgrounds, it's a cheat code. Like it's the way that I think theater people are able to perform. Like one of my very good friends by the name of TJ Medill, he was in the Foreign Tongues Poetry Group, and when it came to performance, he was just masterful. But he was also a trained actor, and it's like, so I would say lean into that, but also try to explore writing more pieces that are personal to you. Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Okay.
Like speak to multiple people. So I was trying to see like how you go at that, because a line that you said was it's like asking a circle, whose side are you on? That like hit me, and I'm sure it hit a lot of people too, because like it's a thing that anyone can relate to. So I wanted to see like how you go at finding stuff like that.
So the question is like, how do you write more things that are more universal?
Yeah.
Okay. I would argue, and I've heard people attribute this quote to Maya Angelou, but I haven't been able to find it. But Saul Williams, who is also a poet, attributed it to her, and he said that she said the things that are most personal are the most universal. And so in order to write something universal, I would argue, say, to go inward, because just like when I perform love poems that resonate with people, these love poems are about my experience, but we all experience a lot of the same things. So when you're trying to write things that are universal, I would say we're a lot more alike. Contrary to what I would think certain people want us to believe, we're a lot more alike than we are different. And so I would argue, go inward. Go inward and talk about your struggles, what you experience, and then you will be amazed at how many people it will resonate with. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. My man. Oh, you got up. Okay.
I got up. My name is Amir Wells. I'm a marketing major here, freshman. This is a two-part question. I was wondering if you use music as I know you mentioned hip hop a lot, but like, if you use music as like a way of like inspiration for like your poems, or does it really just come from like, I guess what you've been through and everything? And my bad, I'm kind of nervous. I don't like the way my voice sounds out here.
That's
but also, like, in what ways do you use like, I guess, your inspo or like your storytelling as a way of like collective healing in a way?
Got you. So, yes, one, I do use music as inspiration. I think one of the first poetry books I got, one of the pieces of advice in there was begin to research different artists that you like, music artists, and then be able to dissect why you like them. And so, like, I bought like every Erykah Badu album, every Common album, and like I love to just be able to break down not only like I like that, but why do I like that? Like, you know, Andre 3000, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, like all these people are people that I really, really like. But it's one thing to say, okay, I like them, but like, why do I like them? And so breaking that down is something that I use to inspire me. And then the second part of your question, what was it? What was the second part of the question again?
If you use, like, how do you use your storytelling as like a collective healing?
Yes, I think a lot of the stories that I tell, the poetry that I write, I would argue I'm writing my way through things. Like the poetry I wrote early on, literally, I couldn't afford a therapist in college when my mother passed away, but I would argue that poetry that I wrote, even if I didn't share a lot of it with people, it was healing. And I needed it because I felt like there were things that I needed to share that I couldn't necessarily share with people, but I needed to share them somewhere. And so getting those emotions out was very therapeutic for me, very healing for me. So I would argue it is, yes.
So you said writing through your like things that you've been through. What exactly does that mean?
Writing through it means I'm processing it to trying to, because sometimes we think that a situation may have happened a year ago, but you are still not over that situation. And so me writing through it means I'm processing my emotions. How do I feel about it in this moment? Are there things in that situation that I'm still not over, if I'm honest with myself? Because sometimes like we'll say, oh, I'm over that, I'm good.
Yeah.
You're not. You're not. And it's like through writing, I come to understand that. Also, sometimes the emotions that arise when I'm writing help me understand where I'm at in that journey of writing through something. And so that's what I mean about writing through something. And like I said, a lot of the poems that I write, they may never be shared with anyone else, but sometimes it's just good for me personally.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
All right, no problem.
I'm glad there are more people who have questions, but I know that there's another event
Got you.
later on, and I want to make sure before one or two people just start leaving that everybody has an opportunity to thank Dr. McFerguson for coming.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? My name is Curtis Dustin. I'm a freshman filmmaking major in Professor Mel's class.
Okay.
I was wondering, for a creator like yourself, what is the main driving factor for you? Like for me, it's my goals and ambitions. I'm trying to take this as far as I can go. But for you, what's the driving factor that pushes you to keep creating? And do you have any advice for a young creator like myself?
Yeah, I would say the thing that drives me is like sometimes you get ideas and the idea will not let you go. Like I would like get an idea and I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'm jotting down things about the idea, right? And so it's like when I find those things, I have to, like I can't control, I have to follow that, right? And so I think that's one thing. And if I would say, to anything to a young creator is like, they always say it can't be done, until it's done, right? And so I would be ambitious, man. Just be like, shoot your shots. Something me and my wife talk about often, we've gotten to the practice of, it doesn't matter if you hit the shot, it matters like we're getting enough shots up. Like Steph Curry can have a bad game, but that doesn't mean next game he's gonna stop shooting. And so I'm just getting in the habit of shooting my shots, taking chances, taking opportunities, and I'm not necessarily focused on if I'm successful, I'm just getting in the habit of developing that muscle of trying. And so I would say be fearless. Like, yeah, try. Do not let fear stop you from trying something. Yeah, so thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, and thank you all.